Ready? Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Maybe not. There we go. Okay, it is 6 o'clock and I will call to order the Plainfield Charter Township Board meeting for September 9th, 2024. We'll begin our meeting with the invocation and the pledge led by Jack Hagedorn.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we are all on our various journeys, each one of us seeking to find you and ourselves. Thank you for caring for us and providing a way in which we can know you. We ask that you, during this election cycle, that your will would be done. Now, as we do the business of the township, we ask that you will guide us as we seek to make decisions that are in the best interests of the people. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There you go. All right, thank you, everyone. Next on our agenda is our time for public comments. If anybody would like to make public comments, this would just have to do with township business or anything else pertaining to the township. Now's the time to do that. We'll obviously have a couple public hearings tonight. Those are item specific, so if you're here for that, I would suggest you wait till those items come up. So if you'd like to make a public comment at this time, if you raise your hand, I'll acknowledge you. I know we have someone, so let me go through the rules here just quick a second. You have 3 minutes. There'll be a clock on the screen to help guide you with your timing. No individual may speak more than once. Public comments are not a question and answer period. Please be respectful. No abusive, obscene, or irrelevant comments will be allowed. So, with that being said, sir. Yes, please, and we'll need you to state your name and address for our records, please.
Now it's on. Everybody got me now? All right. Daniel O'Hara, address 5929 Longmore Court Southeast, Caledonia, Michigan. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. My name's Dan O'Hara. I'm a judicial candidate for the 63rd District Court. There's a new seat that's been added by the legislature effective this coming year, so the election cycle is running right now. And I wanted just to first start off by thanking everybody for the opportunity to allow me to speak and introduce myself. Thank you all for being here. Members of the committee, the elected officials, obviously all care about the communities they serve. You all are here because you care about the communities that you serve. By way of background, I'm an assistant prosecuting attorney. My job is to care for and advocate for the community that I live in, that I'm raising my family in, that we all live in. So thank you all for being invested in that. What I stand for is essentially making sure that somebody who's appointed or elected to be the next judge has the experience, the real life litigation experience to best serve the people of Kent County. I've been a prosecuting attorney since 2015. I've tried every type of jury trial that you can think of, ranging from the most small misdemeanor to first-degree premeditated murder. I've dealt with thousands and thousands of cases. 63rd District Court is an extremely busy court. That's the reason why they added that spot. The legislatures observed the volume of cases that go through that court and determined that they needed another judge. As a prosecuting attorney, what I do and what I have done for almost the last decade has been assigned to judges throughout Kent County. I've managed dockets, 3 dockets, district court dockets at a time with a circuit court judge. The judges throughout Kent County have observed me practicing in the courtroom on a daily basis. Literally, I'm in court every single day. I have 17 current judges presiding in Kent County that endorse me. I think there's 18 or 19 judges in the county right now that preside. 2 of them were recently added, and I just because I have a judicial assignment, I'm not appearing in front of them, but They know me, they know my background, they know my advocacy, and they know my knowledge of the law, and in particular, they know the respect that I bring, not only to the courtroom, but to the people that go through it. Nobody wants to show up to court. Nobody wants to be thrust into the position. Nobody plans on being into a courtroom, whether you're a defendant or a victim. Making sure that you have somebody controlling that courtroom that knows the law, that knows the rules of evidence, that's going to be making life-changing, life-altering decisions on behalf of that person, on behalf of their families, and on behalf of the victims is essential to the foundation of a good community. And that's the community that I live in, that's the community that I raise my family in, and that's the community that I love and care about. So thank you all. I hope that you consider voting for me in November. And I've got some cards with some information on it, or links to information if you're curious. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Greetings. My name is Matthew DeLang. My address is 4134 Clearview Street, Northeast at Grand Rapids. I'm actually in Grand Rapids Township, but I'm running for the probate judge position this coming fall. So you get two judicial debt candidates here tonight. So, you guys are well served. So I'm running for the probate spot. It's actually currently held by Judge Patrick Hillary. He's been on the bench for quite some time. It's actually a family court spot, so I'll be a probate judge that will never do a probate case in all likelihood, just divorce, custody, probate, things, not probate, paternity, things along those lines. But that's the area of law I've been doing throughout my entire career. Since 2008, I've done probably 98% family law. I did a little bit of criminal law right at the beginning of my practice, but otherwise, I've just been handling family law. In particular, I've been specializing in international and interstate family law, so when parties live in two different states or two different countries. I've been endorsed by well over half of the family law attorneys within within this region. I've been endorsed by about half the local family court judges between Kent County and looking at the surrounding counties. I'm well respected within those areas. And in general, if any of you end up talking to another family law attorney and ask them who would they want to hear their divorce case, I expect a majority of them would likely indicate myself. That being said, this is a actual rather important election. There's no other area of law that you will get has a more direct impact on the families within this local community. You have about half the cases ending up in divorce. You have cases where parties are having children out of wedlock. All those cases generally end up within the family division. That's not even considering the fact that this division also hears juvenile criminal cases and abuse neglect cases. So some of our most vulnerable population comes before this court. In this last round of primaries, we had an undervote of about 45%, meaning that 45% of the people who voted didn't even vote within the primary for these family court elections. So I wanted to kind of come in front of the various communities in this county and kind of throw out my pitch for myself, but this also for voting in general within the two family court positions that are currently open. Myself for the probate one, but there's also another family court opening in the circuit court. And I've been endorsing Jenny Johnson, so I figured I would throw her name out as well for that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one else, I will close the floor at this time for public comments, and we will move on to the review of our consent agenda. Without any questions, comments, concern from the board, I would seek a motion to approve our agenda, including the consent agenda and accounts payable.
I move to approve the agenda, including the consent agenda with the amended regular board meeting minutes from August 26, 2024, and the accounts payable.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kathleen. Support from Kathy. Roll call vote, please.
Hey, Mrs. Merrill,
Yes.
Ms. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Lowenthal, yes.
Okay, next item on our agenda is to conduct a couple public hearings. First up would be our 2025 budget. Cameron?
Okay, we had a presentation
at our last board meeting, talking about our draft budget. I'm not going to go into that level of detail, so no half-hour presentation. So, but I will just hit some highlights for those who were unable to attend. What was proposed to the board, and the reason that we're holding, I'll take a step back, the reason we're doing a public hearing this early in the process is the necessity to set the millage for next year. The township needs to decide that prior to the end of September, to get that into the county. In fact, if we don't have it done by this meeting, our assessor's going to get frequent phone calls from the county asking, is it done yet? So we tried to accomplish that by our first meeting in September, set the millage rate, and then go on from there in our budget process. As we talked about at our last meeting, we are proposing a millage rate which has been largely the same since 2016. We've been allocating 3.7 mils to the general fund, including capital improvement purchases. And then there is the little less than half a mil that goes to the Trails and Recreational Areas Fund, and that was approved by voters in 2016. So since that time, we've kind of stuck with that, minus some rollback from the Headley Amendment on the Trails millage. And so it's been fairly stable for 8 years now. And that's what we propose again. We think we can work within those within that budgeted revenue amount as we put our expenditure costs together. And again, as we look at that, we're refining the numbers from what we presented at the last meeting. There's a number of question marks that have to be answered before we can present to you the final budget. Things like, what will health insurance increase be for next year? What will some of the additional labor costs be for next year? Some of those are based on a formula that the numbers have not been published yet. So there's a number of things that we will narrow down, and other areas that throughout this process we will refine the numbers, look for potential savings on expenditures, and bring back to you a budget that we will feel more comfortable with by October and November. So just a continuation of the process. We'll do the second half of the budget in the first meeting in October 14, and then right now targeting the November meeting. We only have one scheduled for November for final approval of the budget. So it'd be November 11 for final approval. This budget is really carrying forward a lot of the priorities of the board, pushing for making sure that public safety is funded in a way that is appropriate for the community. The board had approved a couple months back the addition of an assistant fire chief, position that we've had in the past but has been vacant since 2016. And so we're adding that back to free up some of our other staff to do less administrative work and more focus on the day-to-day, because our call volume just continues to rise. So, and we've added some additional prevention work. So we've elevated our fire inspector to fire marshal and added a full-time, from a part-time to a full-time position underneath for fire prevention. Just a reminder, we are one of the leaders in the state for smoke detector installation. I don't know that there's any other fire department in the state that has installed more smoke detectors in homes, and that's a huge effort. The smoke detectors come from a grant from the state. Our efforts go in there, but it doesn't just do smoke detectors. We're also looking for other fire hazards as well when we get the opportunity, and do education. And we're big believers that the cheapest fire to fight is the one that never happens. So that's why we're putting a lot of money into the prevention efforts. So this really follows the strategic plan of the board and the desire of the board to emphasize safety in our community. And so we're happy to be able to put that forward in the budget. And we'll continue to work on that through the next couple of months. So at this point, we'll hold a public hearing, and then I would be looking for the board to make a decision on the millage for next year.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I would open the floor for anybody that has a comment about our 2025 budget. Seeing no one, I will close that public hearing. We'll go to then if anyone has any comments towards our 24 master, oh, wait. We're going to stop. Our next public hearing is for our 24 master plan revisions. I'm sorry. So with that, I'm assuming we're turning over to Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah's gonna do the presentation, but I gotta get it loaded up, right? I gotta find it here a second, so.
Yeah, so, is this on?
Oh, sorry, Elizabeth. Okay.
That's okay. While you're getting that pulled up, I thought I'd just give a brief background on the process to date and what it will look like moving forward. So the Planning Commission held the required public hearing for the final adoption of this update at their last meeting. They heard some public comment. They took in some written public comment. I forwarded all of that to you as well. And they made one amendment to the master plan, but otherwise voted to approve it as it was. So moving forward in the process, this is the final stage for you to review the final plan, ask any questions, and then if you feel comfortable, move forward with adopting it. If you'd like some tweaks, the next steps would be to send it back to the Planning Commission. Yeah, Sarah's going to take it away on what we've changed, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. So as Elizabeth said, and you can jump to my next slide, please. I'm not sure who has the power here. Okay.
We both
thank
do,
you.
so Elizabeth, I'll let you work through it.
So yeah, as Elizabeth said, we had our public hearing at our August 27th Planning Commission meeting. And today what I wanted to do was just do an overview of how we got here, since it's been a long process, and just to give people an update and refresher of kind of why we're updating the master plan, the vision and guiding themes that we've established, and then talking through the future land use plan, where we address that amendment that we made from the previous Planning Commission meeting. So a review of why we are updating, it's 4 key themes that we're driving this update effort, and they're starting with the natural features of the township. So Plainfield's largely transitioned from its agricultural identity, and we wanted to shift into promoting it as a suburban environment that's rich with natural features that we're protecting and kind of capitalizing on and making sure people have those around for a long time and can use them in an enjoyable way. Housing is another main theme of this master plan update. So household sizes are shrinking and preferences for what kind of housing types we have are differing as well. There's a big housing shortage happening, and in taking a look at Plainfield's housing stock, we're thinking about it a little bit differently in this plan. Public water is also being extended to the northwest quadrant of the township, so this opens up room for development in areas where it makes more sense based on this utility expansion. And then our Reimagined Plainfield plan also informs this update as we work to align the 2 documents together so that they build on each other, and we kind of reinvigorate the Plainfield Avenue corridor with work that's being done alongside this master plan. So our vision and guiding themes that we've kind of finalized here are, I'll just read them out here. I know it's a lot of words, but our vision is Plainfield Township will be a well-balanced, connected, and vibrant community that is consistently resilient to changing conditions and intentionally accounts for the needs of its natural environment and population as a whole. And then we have 4 guiding themes that build on that as well, and they're grow, adapt, thrive, and balance. And all of this information here came from surveys that we did with the public, our open house that we had with the public, and working closely with staff and the Planning Commission to finalize these to get to their end state here. So the next major component of this master plan update are the future land use categories. So essentially these are categories that will guide development. So it can happen over many years, 20 years from now, but it just guides the uses as they take shape in the township. So we made some revisions to these, and I kind of wanted to outline what they were and then why we made them. So one major one is that we added a parks and open space category, and this builds on those valuable natural existing natural features that we have in the township and preserving those and kind of developing in accordance with those and having them kind of drive the decisions that we make. There's also 3 commercial subcategories within our mixed use category. So we want to promote areas that are adaptable and have lots of different uses that can happen within them. So we have those 3 different ones so that they vary with scale and can be tailored to the different areas of the township. And then the last major thing that you'll see here is that we've tried to simplify the future land use categories to make them easier to use and more clear. And those are kind of the most effective categories that you can have. So we've simplified everything and given them same lists of what they are, how they'll develop, and what can be taking place within those. So an overview of what the future land use categories are, I kind of broke them up into 3 categories here to make it kind of easier to read through. But for natural features, we have parks and open space, and then our country residential category. Within residential, we have 4 different areas. So we have our country residential, suburban residential, and neighborhood residential. So that goes from kind of the larger lots that are developed near those natural features into areas where we have some diverse housing types happening. And then mixed-use areas are areas where we have some living areas where we have housing mixed in with different uses as well. And then finally, for our services, we have those mixed-use areas, which function as commercial areas, office park, and then a flexible industrial district. So this is our future land use map that has all of those different categories placed onto it. And I highlighted the 2 changes that have been made to this based on public feedback that we've received. So the first one was from a while back where we've updated the northeast corner of West River and Jupiter from neighborhood residential to suburban residential. So based on feedback from the public, that's one thing that's changed there. And then the second one here was an update that happened from our last planning commission meeting. So we received a lot of feedback and letters, as you probably saw, from residents in the Harrington neighborhood. So what we've done is we've adjusted that flexible industrial line up by 2 there and moved it north based on feedback from them. And then we've added some protective language into the master plan to help those residents feel comfortable with the industrial development happening there. So that's an overview of kind of, long story short, of how we've gotten here. And just in terms of what's next, because we've reached the end of the process here, is that zoning amendments and access management planning will be key elements of our implementation after the plan's adopted. So that's kind of where this process goes next after the plan has been created. Thank you, everybody. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Thank you, Sarah. We may when we get to the board discussion on this, okay?
Sounds good.
You're going to stay, right?
Yes, I'll be here.
Okay. Okay, so at this time, it's public hearing time for the master plan. If anybody has any comments, now would be your time. Not seeing anyone, I will close the public hearing for the master plan, and we will move on to our new business. So our first item is to consider a resolution to approve the 2024 master plan update. Anybody have anything further to say, Cameron or Sarah? No, we're good, okay. So we'll just move on to board discussion on this. Frank, do you have anything?
I'm all set, thanks.
All right, Nancy?
I'm okay.
Susan? I am okay. Kathleen?
I'm all set.
Kathy?
All good.
Jackie, are you gonna make it unanimous?
I know it.
I know you can't do it. That's why I said it.
No. I noticed that it listed the planning commission members and the board members, and Nancy Wood's name was not on it, and I'm sure you've already caught that, but I thought I'd mention it anyway.
I appreciate you finding that, Jack. It also proves you read the document, so.
At least the first couple pages, yeah.
All right, thank you. So at this time, with no questions or discussion, I would seek a motion.
I move to approve the resolution to approve the 2024 master plan update as presented.
Thank you, Susan. Support?
Support?
Thank you, Frank. Roll call vote, please.
And Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Ms. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn?
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff?
Yes.
Mrs. Merrill?
Yes.
Mrs. Lowenthal, yes. Mr. Coleman?
Yes. Item B on our new business agenda is to consider the approval of the 2025 millage rate of 4.1706 mils. You already talked about this a
I
little bit.
did. I don't, unless there's questions, I really don't have much to add, so.
Okay,
The same as we've done, largely the same as we've done before for the last 8 years.
all right, super. We held a hearing, so on the board, I'll just go quick. Frank, Nancy, Susan, Kathleen,
I do
Kathy. Kathy's got some.
question, and maybe
Jack,
Bill,
she beat you.
Bill can respond to this. I know we're talking in the Parks Committee about an additional millage, and I'm just curious how that works with this.
It's not going to affect the 2025 budget whatsoever.
Okay.
We're going to do funding visioning is what it's called. And when we get through that process, then we'll introduce, if we come up with something, introduce it to the board as a whole, but it doesn't impact the 2025 budget.
Okay, this is just the status quo to keep us going, and then we may consider
Totally
something.
separate from this, correct?
Okay, thank you.
If I may add to that too, anything above and beyond this really takes a vote of the public at this point. So not to get too deep into the weeds, but a charter township is limited Back in 1978, we were limited at 5 mills when we became a charter township through the Headley Amendment. That's rolled back to now where the general fund limit that you may approve is about 3.9 mills. So at 3.7 mills, we're almost up against that cap. So there's not a lot of flexibility that you could, sitting here, approve. You would really need the voters to approve that. So I think if you're going to ask for more money for parks, I think you would want to go to the voters anyway.
Okay, Jack?
This is going to surprise you, but I'm good.
Wow. Well then, moving right along, with no further discussion, I would seek a motion.
I move to approve a 2025 general fund millage rate of 3.7 mils and a specific trails and recreational areas millage of 0.4706 mils as presented.
Support.
Thank you, Kathy. Support from Jack. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Mrs. Merrill,
Yes.
Ms. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Lowenthal, yes.
Last item of new business is to consider the approval for repair on the Rockford Trail. Mr. Fisher?
I'll introduce it just real quick, then we're going to turn it over to Scott here from Prana Newhoff. But I'm assuming you've read the memo, you read his letter, a little background information. We're having trouble with a very, very challenging part of what this is called the Rockford Trail right there across from Childsdale. You may recall if you've been out there, it's built into the side of a hill. It's outside of the right-of-way where we got easements from folks. And then out in the field, they experienced some challenging situations with, I don't want to steal your thunder, but the AT&T. And here we are, year plus later. It isn't your typical settling and erosion issue. It's more than that. They've had to have their specialist engineers look at that. So there's a cost to these things when we have to repair, just like any infrastructure, water, sewer, storm, et cetera. But this is our first trails one. So we do have the budget for it. It's an unfortunate cost, but we do want to get it fixed soon because there's big cracks in it. And we have a company ready to go if you approve this tonight that specializes in this restoration. It's actually, the company is a subcontractor to the main contractor for the Grand Rogue Park project, which we're just waiting for Eagle to give us our permit, and they're ready to go. Because we don't have that yet, we're hoping to get in a couple weeks. This particular contractor has the opportunity to get here again if you approve it. So with that, I asked Scott Post from Prana Newhoff, our trails engineer, Kevin Gritters from Prana Newhoff is also here, and Joe's a great resource. We have any questions on this, to come here and kind of explain the background because it's a little complicated and it's an engineering thing. So with that, I'll turn over to you, Scott.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Scott Post, Prana Newhoff. As described in the letter, we showed that the original plan for the path was it was going to be down a little bit closer to the road with a taller wall on the backside. During construction, we came across an AT&T conduit that wasn't noted in the misdig. It was also pretty high. Given the fact that the AT&T conduit and the trail were both in private easements, it's very hard to get private utilities to relocate when they own the land or they have rights to the land. So we made a decision to raise the path up accordingly, which is very common. We do that quite often. In this case, within a year, we started to see some small cracking. It started to look like your typical settlement cracking after something's been constructed. However, in a couple years, the cracks started to get worse. So we brought in our geotechnical engineer and our structural engineer to take a look at it, and they came to the conclusion that it was not your typical settlement cracking. It's actually slope failure, which is something that won't fix itself. It won't settle down. So we discussed this with some contractors that we know, specifically Grant Plockmeyer with Riverworks Construction, does a lot of the boardwalks in the area all over West Michigan. I feel like sometimes he's the only subcontractor I get to do the boardwalks and retaining walls and sheet pile, and so he's quite an expert in this area. So we sat down with him, reviewed all of the different options with different types of retaining walls, came to the conclusion that this was the most effective and inexpensive method, and so that's where we are right now. And he's like Bill had mentioned, he's ready to go. You know, one delay on an Eagle permit for Grand Rogue gave him a little bit more of an accelerated schedule for this. I think he can get in right around the 1st of October. The pile materials that we would use, that he would use for the construction are actually in stock. And so it's not something that has a lead time that he has to order it. It would just be a matter of getting him in there to do the installation and then repairing the pathway immediately afterwards. Does anybody have any questions on the plan or what went into it?
Yeah, could you explain what where it would go? Because it's
Oh,
on the
yeah.
roadside. Just give me a little bit idea of how this is all gonna take place. Like, there's the fence on top of the trail, and you go like this, the fence, it doesn't budge. You would think with the issues we're having, it's still pretty solid. But if you can, it's on the roadside, if you can explain a little bit about
Yeah.
that?
So the large block wall is on the backside. I know most of you guys have driven past, I think, and seen it. The large block wall is on the back side of the path. This would be on the front side of the path. We would try to put, they're called sheet piling. And I don't know if you're familiar with sheet piling just by stating it, but it's typically an 18-inch to 2-foot wide sheet of steel, 50 to 25 feet long, and they just drill them into the ground, and they interlock, and so it creates a continuous wall. You'll see them bulkheads along piers and along the water oftentimes. Then they weld a cap on the top to give it a little bit more of an architectural look. But what they would do is they would go up there, put that in there, and you're right, the reason that fence isn't moving, everything is solid, is because it's not settling, it's not sloughing, it's just moving down. So everything's moving down together. And so this wall right along the edge of the current location of the path would prevent anything from moving down anymore. And then the hill on the other side of it would just remain where it is along that. And we got good grass growth along there, so it's not like it's washing out. It's really limited to this one issue, that if we get a wall in there, that would solidify the whole hill. And what we're hoping, and for Cameron's benefit too, because I know it isn't his favorite type of wall, but what we're hoping to have enough of the wall right down at trail level, and then replace the fence right along it, so that minimal wall is actually exposed to people's view. And really inexpensively with restoration, there's vines and stuff that can grow over it, and that will actually help stabilize the slope as well. So.
Okay, thank you, Scott. If you can just bear with me a second, I want to make sure if anyone has any comment on this issue, public-wise. Seeing nobody, okay, we'll forego public comment. There is none, so board discussion. Frank, you have anything for Scott?
Scott, so you're very confident this is going to be the fix? Because you did say it was raised before and that didn't work.
Yes, this will absolutely fix it, because this will create a wall along it's sloughing on the side where there is no wall, just down toward the road. And so this would go in right along that side of the path and act as a retaining wall that would hold that all in place. The remaining dirt on the backside of it would just lean up against it because there's no weight on top of it.
Okay, thanks.
Let's jump around. Jack?
This question is probably, does not apply to this situation, but does bring up an issue for me, and that would be what kind of warranty would we have on a new trail like the new trail that's on Jericho?
Yeah, typically with the contractor, the contracts read that there's a 1-year warranty for construction. In this case, it wasn't a contractor issue. It was something that they could not have prevented. They built the project per spec.
Unforeseen.
Unforeseen, yes. Yep.
Nancy?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Sort of along the same lines I think Jack was heading. Do we know why this settling happened? Did we miss something in the speccing or the engineering, or and then follow up to that is there any risk that this sort of issue will happen in any other spots, in that section?
Yeah, I'll start with your second question. And no, there's no other risks of that happening. Once this wall's in place, it will remain in place. As far as whether it could have been caught early on, it's possible. We've done this many times, built trails on top of slopes, and don't have issues like this. So sometimes it's one of those things that's like, you see it afterwards. If we had seen this right away and immediately, we would have had to have come back and put a wall in there. Like the same solution would have been recommended back 2 years ago or 3 years ago when we built the trail.
Would we have had this issue, do you think, if we had built it at the original kind of depth plan, if the AT&T line hadn't been there?
No, we wouldn't have, because as the slope, you're gonna tax my ability.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry if we get too
No,
engineering
it
here.
isn't too technical, it's just goofy to describe. So the slope of the hill comes down like this, and as the trail came down, there's more of a shoulder on
I
it.
see.
And so it pushes us back and off the edge of the slope.
Okay. So from a warranty perspective, should we be talking to Ms. Digg, who misinformed us of the depth of that AT&T line?
I don't know if they actually take any claim on that whatsoever. And in addition to that, it is in a private easement as well. So most of the utility information was shown. We saw where most of their lines were, because there's actually a big pedestal back there. And we specifically designed it to stay ahead of the pedestal where the lines were running parallel to the road there. And there just happened to be one that was weirdly not where it was supposed to be.
If I could jump in too, this is not the first time we've run into, it's always telecommunications that are out of place. On
Their road.
Jupiter Trail, we had the same thing.
Yep, Jupiter right near West River. Yep.
And I don't know if this is necessarily a mismarked or a unmarked, but when we were crossing 131 with water main, we also spliced into the AT&T line, and maybe it was us, our contractor, maybe it was AT&T, didn't mark it correctly, but it's telecommunications, some of it is the way it's installed, some of it is the hodgepodge nature of especially internet services. I had a former coworker who worked for Comcast 20 years ago, and he said when they started laying fiber, they laid in such a fury, they would run into a line and wonder whose it was and realize it was their own.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we've run into in terms of the telecommunications industry. Sometimes they get ahead of themselves a little bit, and the documentation is not supportive of what's actually out there.
One more question that's maybe better sent over here than over here. I imagine this is an unforeseen cost for us, and so what does this do to our other trail development plans? Does it push anything out? What's going on with that?
No, we can handle this. We've been planning on putting aside anywhere from 10 to 20% for trail fixes anyways. Our trail system is so young, we haven't, but our asset management plan, our AMP, talks about starting to put aside money for stuff like this. We didn't do a project this year because we were gearing up to have enough money to do the South Rogue River Road project next year, but we will still have enough funding for that. And think too that the county is at least verbally pledged to help us with some of the cost for the Rogue River Road thing. So I think and that's part of their grander project. So it couldn't happen at a better time. I think we can weather the storm financially.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, Kathy?
All my questions have been answered. Thank you to Susan and to Nancy and to Jack.
Thanks. Susan?
I too had the questions about the insurance and whether there were any possibilities for someone else to be paying this $105,000 bill.
Yeah.
And although Bill took a very careful time with me and explained it very, very nicely, there's nothing we can do. But all these questions were the same ones that were going around in my mind, but I got a hold of him. Thank you.
Kathleen?
I'm all set.
Yeah, these guys, they got them all, didn't
Nothing
they?
to say.
So, Scott, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Appreciate it. Kevin, you didn't say a whole lot there, but thank you too. All right, so at this time, I would seek a motion.
I move to approve the repair of the Rockford Trail segment near the Cuttsill Drive, Childsdale Avenue intersection by Riverworks Construction in an amount not to exceed $105,000.
Thank you, Kathy. Support?
Support.
Thank you, Susan. Roll call vote, please.
Hey, Ms. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mrs. Merrill?
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff?
Yes.
Mrs. Lowenthal, yes, and Mr. Coleman.
Yes. Okay. Item 9 on our agenda is your commentary time.
All right, thank you. A few comments to share with you tonight. So as of September 1, Plainfield Township has taken over the operations at Saddle Ridge Community. So you recall that we've been working with the Homeowners Association in Algoma Township. They had a private community sewer system that was failing, and so we had negotiated with them and with Rockford Schools, with their new elementary school in that location, to make a connection to our system. The timeliness of it was such that we are not yet connected. So their system is at complete failure, so they're daily pumping out their sewer system to a different treatment facility. So those costs you'll start to see those costs on our accounts payable. All those costs will be going back to that community. That was a core element of us coming in to help with their situation was, look, we can be part of the solution, but we're not gonna bear the cost. And so you'll start to see those, and it's not gonna be cheap for a little while. Daily, they have to pump the waste out and haul it away, and that, as you imagine, is not a cheap cost. And that's because the timeliness of it, getting our force main ready in the time that they needed just really was not a realistic target. But we do think that by mid-October, that's been the target, right? Mid to late October, and we're still on track for that. Kevin's nodding yes. So you'll start to see those costs start to come across our accounts payable. Just want to explain that up front so you're not, well, people are probably guessing why we're paying our neighbor's sewer bill. That's why it's going to get tacked onto their sewer bill as we start to make that change, so as of September 1. And that's a project, too, that even though the force main will be done by mid-October, there's still sorry, I'm blanking right now, but the well, sorry, pump station, thank you. It's been a long Monday. So the pump station to put it into the force main will take months after that to complete yet. But that's less time critical because the system can start to accept waste as soon as that force main is done. So, and that's a good lead into our next meeting, which will be our fall infrastructure workshop. So you'll see Kevin here again next meeting. He'll lead you through the projects that are planned for next year and beyond. We're past that massive glut of water main expansion to address PFAS contamination, and now we're back to fixing what is breaking. We've had some success with replacing some of the existing water main this year. We were just talking with Jeff before the meeting that they're making a final tie-in at Miramar and Plainfield for that project. And some of the contractors have been hungry to get going on some of the next projects already. So we may see some advanced work on that, depending on crew availability and weather. We may see some work this fall that had been planned for next year. We'll see. But Kevin's going to walk you through the projects and talk about the time frame and the necessity for those types of projects. And we're really gearing up to look at infrastructure projects not on a year-by-year basis, but looking out multiple years, because that's the way we need to plan. That's the way, working with Brian Newhoff over the years, we've always had a 10 to 20 year outlook of projects. So one thing that we need to talk about too is how does our rate structure support some of the identified capital needs that are out there as well. So that's something that Warren and I have started working on, is exploring analysis of our rate structure to make sure that we're not pushing off capital projects just because our rates don't support it, because we really are pushing our problems down the road. And the water distribution team doesn't like to get up at 3 a.m. to do main breaks, and the residents don't like being without water in the morning too. So we want to take care of our system, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by our customers to make sure our system's in its best operable shape. The last comment I have is the work for the November election is starting to pick up, starting to work on making sure the ballots are ready to go, that the machines have been tested. So there's a lot of activity going on already. You'll see a lot of that continue to grow. Just make sure you help get the word out. We anticipate a more chaotic election than we've ever seen. And that, a lot of that comes down to voter confusion over some of the law changes that have taken place. This will now be our third election with early in-person voting. People don't really know what that means. I heard a resident ask today, I had heard a staff person explain that you can come for 9 days early and vote in person. And she said, well, when can I actually vote on the machine? That's what that is. It's a confusing concept because we've had absentee voting for a long time. And that is also early voting, but it's not in-person voting. So we're gonna work on communications to get that out there, but the more that everyone can do word of mouth to help people understand, don't wait till the last minute. Last gubernatorial election, we had a line out the door of people registering to vote on election day. You can register to vote anytime. You don't need to wait till election day. Don't wait till election day, or you may actually miss the opportunity to vote because you've waited too long. So help us get the word out there. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Susan, do you have anything?
I do. I happen to have a project that I was doing, and I was driving almost a couple times a week past Saddle Ridge. And I couldn't help but drive down the street, and knowing what we know about what these poor people are going through, I encourage you to go take a ride and then count your blessings, because that is a huge situation up there. And there was road repair almost every time that I was out there, and they did a pretty good job on road repair, but not as smooth right at the intersection of Algoma and 11 Mile. Yeah, there were some really bad ruts there. But the name of the school is what? It's not Saddle Ridge. The school has a different sign
No,
out
is
in
it
front.
Edgerton?
Edgerton.
Because that's the
it.
road it's on.
Yes,
Yep.
yep. And I thought that was important. As many times as we talked about Saddle Ridge, I was surprised to see a different school name. It just seemed logical. Jeff, can you give us any idea about how much longer it will take to finish up the Comstock Park? Those businesses are concerned. Oh, is it? The lining, is it? Are they?
They're getting near the phase of tying in so they can start chlorinating and testing. So I think they had 1 or 2 hydrant stuff put in. And once all of that's done and tied back in, they can start flushing and disinfecting and go back to service.
That's much closer to the end than I thought you were going to say, so. But it is precarious with all the big holes that are there, and a lot of people cross West River Drive for a variety of reasons. And then the last thing that I wanted to nicely say to all the people at this table, and I hope that the people listening on television and all the people in our audience can stop and think for a minute. We are a community that has not raised their taxes since 2016. That's amazing. It's amazing quality of the people who work here. It's amazing with the foresight of things like reimagining. It's highly unusual. Almost everybody complains about taxes and things like that. And here we are with a bill for $105,000, and I looked at that very, very closely. I was hoping there was an insurance coverage on it, but to be able to take care of the emergency situations and still operate an organization as a community as large as Plainfield. We have citizens we should say thank you to, but predominantly it's the people here at the board that are making that decision. And I have loved working with everybody, and I hope we can continue to be that successful with our finances.
Thank you, Susan. Kathleen?
All set?
Nancy?
Just a quick show of appreciation for the master plan work that's been done. I think Sarah already maybe left, but it was a huge endeavor. Jack mentioned earlier, when this process started, I was on the planning commission and then transitioned over to the board. And so it was a very cool experience, I think, to see that committee work and the preparation they did to prepare it for us. And yeah, just good work to them, to the staff, to the consultants. It's a good plan.
Thanks, Nancy. Kathy?
Just a shout out to our fire department for traveling 110 stairs in honor of 9/11.
Thanks, Kathy. Frank?
You said there's going to be testing and it's going to be, do you have any kind of timeline?
Jen, do you remember what they told us at the Comstock Park DDA? Kevin, off the top of my head, I hate to put you on the spot, I'll embarrass myself for you. I thought they told us it would be mid-October. That's my memory.
Early to mid-October is when it's supposed to be.
Correct.
So Christmas.
No,
Right.
no,
Thank you.
no.
Thank you.
No, they've been timely in what they've done, and they were very proactive with the DDA. So, Jack?
Yeah, I heard about the maintenance, preventive maintenance that we're doing on our water mains and the proactivity, and I don't know if you've been keeping up with the Grand Rapids situation, where they have a massive water break and people are hurting badly, houses are ruined, and Grand Rapids just says, well, too bad. And so I'm glad we're proactive in that. Keeps people from having those disasters.
All right. I guess I'll just conclude by saying thanks to all the staff that's here tonight. Appreciate the hard work you all do every day. Brennan Newhoff, thank you for your attendance tonight. CJ, nice to see you. And with that, we're adjourned.